thought we could do a little yin practice on this Sunday evening to wind down the weekend. So let's take a comfortable seat. Grab a pillow or a bolster if you can, and maybe even a blanket, because you might use them in the postures we do. So any kind of comfortable seat, and I'll attach a playlist that's called Yin, and it's just some beautiful, easy music that helps stay in this zone. And what we're going to do is some diaphragmic breathing, where we puff out our belly, and then when we exhale, we hold it in. And breathing this way isn't really natural, and we have to pay attention to it. And when we pay attention to our breathing, when we feel the sensation of the belly distending, and we hear the sounds of the breath in our ears, and if you look and you can see your belly, or if you want to see mine, you can see my belly distending. It helps us pay attention. Yeah, which is a nice way of saying mindfulness. And this yin practice is a mindfulness practice that, even more so than a vinyasa practice, is tougher, because there's quite a bit of downtime in yin. We will be holding postures for longer periods, 3 to 5 minutes, without moving. And it's not kind of our usual way, right? So maybe 30 more seconds here before we begin. Good. Now the first pose we're going to do is called dangle. And we're going to do a combination of two poses. We'll be in dangle and we'll be in a squat. Both of the poses are pretty extreme. One is an extreme forward fold, and one is an extreme kind of hip opener. So dangle is, you'll forward fold, bend your knees as much as you need to, and then allow the head to fall, and allow yourself to dangle here. Now I have my chest on my thighs because I feel more supported that way, and my knees are bent. Some of you are quite limber, and you'll be able to straighten your hamstrings right away. But understand that in yin, it's not about going to the deepest place. It's about riding the edge. So it's this gentle stress on the body that's held for a long period of time. Instead of like when we do calisthenics or when we lift weights, it's repetitions, because the muscles respond well to repetitions. In yin, we're not really focused on the muscles as much. We're focused on the parts of the body that connect the muscles to the bone and the bone to the bone. Those are the tissues that we really focus on here. And the yin modality calls those tissues plastic. And tissues that are plastic respond better when they're cool. So we're not in a hot room like we would be in a vinyasa class or a Bikram class. They respond to stillness, and they respond to moderate stress. And we can think of that moderate stress as hormesis, or that it's kind of in vogue now, going to doing cold training or exercising in a really hot room or fasting. The idea is that we've all become too comfortable and that we need to put our body in a little bit of stress to get positive benefits. So in this case, holding these poses and surrendering, allowing gravity to take us deeper, is our way of stressing the ligaments, the connective tissue, the fascia, so they can get stronger or become more supple. So let's move into the squat, which in vinyasa is called malasana. So the setup is similar. The feet are wider than as wide as the hips are wider, depending on your flexibility. If your heels are off the ground, that's okay. You could put a blanket underneath the heels. The knees are lined up with the toes. And it's a groin opener, but it's also a nice lumbar and sacrum release. And so we'll be here for a couple minutes. Whew. And just have the neck be relaxed. So you don't need to look at the television unless you are dying to look. Think more about having a nice long neck. And then in yin, it's so different. For me at least, I've been a vinyasa practitioner for so long that my default is to have my muscles be engaged. And in yin, it's the opposite. It's this yielding. So we release the muscles so they aren't working. And if the muscles then are released, then we access the tissues we're trying to touch. In this case, the areas around the knees, around the hips, around the ankles, around the low back. So we ride the edge, letting our sensation be our guide. So instead of the pose dictating how our body is supposed to look, the body dictates how the pose is going to look. As long as you're feeling the sensations in the ankles and the knees and the hips and you're getting something out of this squat, then you're doing it right. And then we'll go back to the dangle from here. So easy. Everything in yin is slow. Travis Elliott says, no hurries, no worries. And we'll go back to the dangle. So these principles of yin, they're called tattvas. We ride the edge, and we do it with patience. So we hold the postures for, 3 or 5 minutes, because the body needs a chance to open up. It takes time. Yin allows things to unfold. So in this case, if the body invites you to go deeper, if the body is giving you the green light, then you can take the green light. If the body is saying this is too much, then we back out. Now, the other tattva, besides riding the edge and patience, is this commitment to stillness. So we have to set this resolve to stay no matter what urge comes up. Do we want to scratch our nose, or, are we being distracted by the phone because we're a little bit uncomfortable? But this stillness of the body isn't the only benefit here. So when we have this stillness of body, we experience this slowing of the breath. And then the slowing of the breath promotes this kind of relaxation. And then it, in turn, allows you to truly focus on what you're doing, or concentrate. There's a famous Sikh guru named Ram Dass, and he said that the quieter the mind becomes, the more you can hear. So we use our intuition, and that wisdom will give us the guidance we need to know how far to go in these postures. So one more time, we'll come in the squat. Yeah, and yin is new for me too. Vinyasa has been my practice for 20 years, and I've only been practicing yin for a year, and I think that it was my maturity. A lot of yin is watching and observing, and the Hindus call that witness consciousness, where you kind of are risen above and you have this bird's eye view of you, and you observe objectively, without judgment, without reaction, without the yeah but, and you see kind of what unfolds. And someone who, is on top of it all the time isn't always great at just sitting and going with the flow, and being still. Because being still is confronting. And things come up that maybe stuff you don't want to think about. But I know this, I know that experience in my life has been my greatest teacher. So the experience that you're feeling here, we can learn from it. So tune into what's coming up for you in the next hour. And maybe you can discover some things that either you want to work through, or that you've worked through and come out the other side. Good, so the next pose is a straddle forward fold. Now here are the options here, and we're going to do them, we're going to either have both legs outstretched or one at a time. So we'll try one at a time first. So bring the right leg into a butterfly. Now if your knee is in the air, please put something underneath it to support it, okay? And then, unlike Vinyasa, where I always ask you guys to flex through the toes, in this case it'll be the left foot, and engage through the left thigh, just have your left leg be completely just flaccid and loose. And then let's forward fold into this pose. So in yin, they believe that forward folds massage the stomach and the internal organs, and then they open and here we're opening up the lumbar and the sacrum. So back to that, I'm glad that I'm here. I wanted to talk about moving through something that might be confronting and intense, and how it's a teaching moment, right? Especially if you meet it with negative emotions like I hate this, or I'm bored, or I'm so inflexible, or I'm never gonna get flexible, or you know, the routine. So Pema Chodron, she is that American Buddhist. I think you've seen her before. She's been on Oprah, I'm sure. Anyway, she has this amazing book. It's called When Things Fall Apart. And I'm going to quote her book. Nothing really attacks us except our own confusion. Maybe the only enemy is that we don't like the way reality is right now, and that we wish it would go away fast. And I, for one, have fallen into that with how long are we going to be in this situation? When is this virus going to resolve itself? And we don't really know. And worrying about it and assuming things, and it's not really helping, right? The obstacle just keeps returning, that trying to solve problems that we have no control over. The obstacle just keeps returning. How we're separating ourselves from reality, pulling back instead of opening up, closing down instead of experiencing fully what we encounter. Nothing ever goes away until it teaches you what you need to learn. In this case, patience, maybe. Or if in these postures you go into that self-flagellation of demeaning yourself, of criticizing yourself because you don't look a certain way. Maybe the lesson here is self-acceptance. Loving yourself the way you are right now. Being at home in your own body. Okay. Now between these two postures, we're going to do each side, but between each side I'd like to do saddle pose. So in yin, saddle pose, and you might need to be seated on a block or a bolster, or books. Just elevate your buttocks so the knees can stay on the ground, and then the feet turn back so the toes point towards the back of the room, because it's stimulating for the ankles, the tops of the feet, the toes. And then walk yourself back as far as your body allows. Now the knees might come off the ground, and if they do, I'd like you to please put them back on the ground. Now this is supposed to be a little, some pressure in the low back area. So if you can lay on your back, you have that nice little touch for the connective tissue around the lumbar spine and the sacrum. And it's a really nice release if you don't go too far. And the idea here is the positive pressure that we're putting on this area will promote suppleness, and strengthen. If you think about a baby, a newborn baby is all suppleness, but very little stability. They can't stand up yet, really. And then we move through life, and as we grow, we move and play and run and build that stability and build the muscles to support the skeleton, and the skeleton gets more solid. And I would say at about 20 or 30, we get this perfect balance between the suppleness and the stability of our bones, of our tendons, of our ligaments. And then from there, we move in the other direction. We get less and less supple. And if we're not practicing flexibility, not just in our body, but in our brain too, we become more and more rigid as we age. And then the extreme case, although morbid, is in death. Our body goes to rigor mortis, which is where we're completely stiff. Now this is, it can be a little uncomfortable for the knees. So in yin, yes, we want us to be still and to be patient and hold these postures, but sometimes that bad pain can creep up on us, and then in that case, absolutely come out or ease out slightly. And the opposite is true here. So the body will invite you to go deeper if you can get quiet enough to listen. So if the body is saying, more, please, then that's the other instance where movement is okay. We'll lift out of this and move into the half straddle on the other leg, propping yourself up on your elbows. Coming onto hands and knees is an easy transition, and then let the feet come over to the right or the left, whatever's your natural. Pull your left foot into a butterfly and extend your right leg. Again, you might need support under your chest, because in yin they want the gravity to happen, so the weight of your body can help you dip into the pose. So come into this forward fold. Now, a lot of people feel better when their head is in their hands. And there's a connection between having your head supported and stimulating your parasympathetic nervous system. It's not just that you're taking the weight of the head off of the shoulders, you're in essence taking the weight of the world off of you. And the parasympathetic nervous system, unlike the sympathetic nervous system, is rest and digest. And we know the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight. So in fight or flight, the heart rate increases, and the blood actually goes to your extremities, because that's where it needs to be running from your tiger. And if the tiger were to bite you in your belly, you wouldn't bleed as profusely because the blood is in the extremities. Well, the parasympathetic nervous system, the blood is in the internal organs. And it's when you're in that place, you're boosting your immunity. So any kind of mindfulness practice, whether it's doing dishes but paying attention to the soapy water, the way it feels on your hands, and the slippery feeling of the clean dish. Or this class. Activates that system, which lowers our blood pressure, which boosts our immune system, which stimulates our digestive system. It all has this effect of reducing the stress in our body. Amy Saltzman is one of the pioneers of meditation, and she defines mindfulness as a non-judgmental movement-to-movement awareness, where we're intentionally paying attention with kindness and curiosity. So we choose our behavior or our response. Yeah, as John Milton said in Paradise Lost, the mind is its own place, and in itself can make heaven a hell, and a hell of heaven. You choose how you want to react. So from straddle fold, we'll come into a pose called snail. We're going to come into another back bend called Sphinx. So you prop your chest up and your forearms are parallel. Like straddle, there's this pressure in your low back here, but it's a positive pressure. So just go to where it feels, you feel that sweet touch. Not to the point of kind of bones rubbing on bones or any sort of pinching sensation. And then we try to relax everything. So the buttocks is like jello, and the thighs are completely relaxed. And we don't need my phone in the way, so let's kick it out of the way. Yeah. So you might have heard in yin people use the word meridian. And as I understand it, I think of meridians as like hoses in the body. And over time, there are kinks in our hoses. And so in yin, we gently pull on the meridians. In this case, we're pulling on the front of the body, and in the chest, and we pull on these meridians gently to try to unkink the hose. And then when we do, chi, energy, can restore and flow again. But just like if you were to be untangling a chain, you wouldn't just keep tugging on it. You have to be really patient and ease the links away from each other and find the blocked area, and then gently separate to create that unknotting. And that's what we're doing here in your body. Now, some of you I know are quite flexible, and you can come into the deeper version of this, which is seal. And this is an extreme back bend, so please be careful, because we do hold these. And a lot of us are, we have to be the best and go the deepest, and that's just the antithesis of yin. We go middle. It's called equanimity. Just enough. So the low back for me, and I think 80% of Americans, is the part of my body that No matter how careful, I tend to overwork. It likes taking over for the abdominal muscles, for the glute muscles. I did a hot Pilates workshop with Gabby Walters, and she calls it glute amnesia, where the glutes just kind of want to fall asleep and forget to do their job, and the low back takes over. Well, in yin and in this pose, we are stressing the connective tissues that wrap around the low back area. And in stressing them, the theory behind that is they become longer and thicker and stronger. About a minute more. And just to kind of explain the plastic versus not plastic. So like if you have a credit card and you were to bend the credit card over and over again, it would eventually break. And so the yin folks think of all the connective tissue and the fascia, the stuff we're working on here, as plastic, and the muscles as elastic. And elastic responds well. If you think about saltwater taffy and when you go down to Monterey, it likes the movement and it likes the warmth, and it responds really well to that. It gets looser and longer. Well, that's not the same for this. The connective tissue responds much better to mellow pressure, but for an extended time. Okay, we're going to come out of that through a child's pose. We won't hold the child's pose very long. It's an entry into the next pose we're going to do, which is called snail. So sit back on the heels. Keep your knees together. I know in other classes we have our knees apart, but for this child's pose, have your knees together. You might need to put something underneath your forehead. Have your arms down by your sides. And let this be a gentle counter pose. And rock from side to side. It has a really soothing effect. And the next pose we come into is called snail. And it's like a plow pose or in vinyasa, which is also called halasana. The difference is that we're working in a round spine, and in vinyasa, for halasana, we want you to look like a plow. So you've got the long wood handle of the plow, and then you have that at an angle, and that's what they want your back to be. But in this case, we're going to round our back. So lay on your back and bring your legs over your head. Now, you can bend your knees here, and I like to put them on my forehead, and I support my back with my hands. And then once you get here, the work is in the releasing of everything, like truly letting go. Relaxing through the face muscles. Relaxing the throat. Allowing the flexion to happen in the spine. So the flexion happens when you allow the space to open between each one of the vertebrae. When you allow the curvature to begin in the spine, allowing it to round, relaxing the muscles in the quadriceps and in the glutes so the hamstrings can release. So you can feel that gentle pulling sensation all along the entire spine, down the back of the legs, and even the front of the feet if you put the top of the feet on the floor. Now the neck is a very tender part of the body, and if you were to, just imagine
the vertebrae in the neck is so small, so it's not supposed to support the weight of your body. So make sure that your neck feels safe and supported. Please don't turn your head from side to side. And unlike shoulder stand where we want to, get as tall as we can, it's okay here to put much of the weight on the shoulders. So the neck isn't taking the brunt of this pose. This is deep, very revealing. And then there's that, I'm not doing that, I can't do that, that's not for me. Before you go there, decide what is driving that. If it's a true injury, I understand that. But if it's fear of what? Fear of not looking the way you're supposed to look in this pose? The pose isn't supposed to dictate how you look. Your body dictates how the pose looks. So even if your feet are on a chair, if they don't touch the ground, you have a chair underneath your legs, you're still getting that beautiful stretch for the back. And sometimes while we're here, the body allows us to go deeper. The legs outstretched. The weight can drop away from you, increasing the pulling sensation in the low back. You don't need the hands anymore. And then we'll come out slowly, rolling down one vertebrae at a time. Oh, easy, 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 easy. How you doing? Let's windshield wipe our knees from side to side. What would feel nice after that is a spinal twist. So bring the right knee into the chest and then cross the right leg over the left and look over the right shoulder. How you doing? Twist after a deep spinal flexion like that can be really healing and a nice relief. And again, here, this might take a while for you to relax into. The low back is pretty tender right now, so it might take a few breaths, and you might kind of back out for a little bit and wait for the spine to let you in. You can feel, if you tune in, you can truly feel the blood and energy and I guess you'd call it chi flowing in your low back. And then do the other side. So bring the left knee in and cross over. So my friend Nancy posted this great thing on Facebook, and it was the 8 things that happy people do. And the first one is express gratitude. And I think that that's become
something that most of us are doing a lot more of. And the second was to savor life's joys. And one thing that this experience has been showing me is to experience that, and because we've been able to slow down enough to allow those joys to happen, to have dinner together, to take time and call a friend and be on the phone for 30 minutes laughing. You're not rushing your kids off to school or rushing to go teach a class or go to work. You have time to be in your beautiful house or clean out a closet. All right, come on out of that twist. And then roll yourself to seated. We're going to be in a pose called butterfly. So I'd like you to bring your feet a little further away from your groin. And then I'd like you to you can use your hands to support your head or find a block. And we're going to round over the legs again in a forward fold. So of the 8 things that happy people do, being grateful, savoring life's joys. We don't overthink things when we're happy. So in this case, we could let our brains spin into craziness with the unknown. I mean, how long are we going to be here? How long is this going to go on? Am I healthy? Am I going to be financially okay? Yeah, all that will eat us alive. Can you let those thoughts come and then go? Can you be a witness to your roller coaster ride of emotions? You can observe them, but observe them objectively, knowing that they will pass. I mean, think of when your kids were babies or toddlers, and they'd be in the depths of despair on the ground weeping, huge crocodile tears, red-faced, and then within seconds they could be distracted by something that would bring them into the throes of laughter. And it's not just being less reactive. Being a witness without judging teaches us to be a lot more forgiving. If everything we think is a judgment on ourselves, that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we weren't prepared enough, we don't have enough, then we'll never feel worthy. So step away. Step away and step into accepting yourself as you are. Good. A couple more poses. So, let's come into happy baby. So lay on your back. And then grab on either to the backs of the knees or the outsides of your feet. And we try to keep the sacrum on the floor. And again, we surrender here. And we let gravity, the weight of our femur bones, the hanging of the hands on the feet, to touch the joints of the hips and the ankles and the inner groin, and we're pressing the low back down. And we're breathing. And with every exhale, things begin to melt. And you can envision yourself like a pad of butter in the sun, spreading and softening. And then put the feet on the floor and release the hips by windshield wiping your knees from side to side. And then for Shavasana, since you're home, I want to show you something that you could do. If you have a blanket or a big thick pillow. So I happen to have these big round tubes of pillows on my bedroom couch. And you lay your legs over the, whatever it is. This works great, but any sort of pillow, the back of your living room couch can work, and then lay down. And, because we're not moving, we tend to get a little chilly in yin. So take a blanket and lay it over your body, and the weight of that blanket is very grounding and soothing. And make your nest. And this is our final act of surrender in this yin practice. Maya Angelou says, I long to be at home wherever I am. And you are home. You're in your safe place with your familiar things and your familiar smells, and you're comfortable. So in this comfort, in this safety, allow yourself to relax into the floor, to melt and get heavy, and feel the support, the solid support of the floor underneath you, the solid support of all the yogis that are practicing with you today, the support from me. I am here, and I'm not just here over the television. I'm here anytime you want to reach out to me. You know that I am here. Text me, call me, I will respond. And we can bolster each other. Let each other know that we are not alone. Encourage each other that this too shall pass. before we go, I'd like you to do a little body scan with me where you wiggle your toes on the left foot and just tune your attention into the left toes. And then the arch of the left foot. And then the heel. And then focus in on the left ankle. And the left calf. And the left shin. What does the left shin feel like right now? And then draw the attention to the knee, as if your attention were a magical swirl and it was swirling around the knee and then behind the knee, that tender skin behind the knee. Now run it up the inner left thigh, right where the thigh and the pelvis meet. And then run it down the outside of the left thigh. And then we'll do the right side. So let's do the right toes and just bring your attention to the toes. Big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, and pinky. To the ball of the foot. To that swoop of the arch of your foot, to the round heel, and up the back of the Achilles and around the right ankle, up the back of the right calf and paying attention to the right shin bone and the muscles that are right there. How does your right knee feel? How about the back of the right knee? And then pay attention to the right thigh, that strong, thick muscle divided into 4 parts. And then the right hamstring. And then bring your attention to your pelvis. The buttocks, the anus, the genitals. Let them be relaxed here. Sometimes we don't even know that we're holding in our sphincter or, doing a Kegel until we pay attention. Just let it go. Turn your attention to your belly. The way it stretches across from hip to hip. And then the rib cage and the lungs within the ribs. And the way the ribs wrap around to the spine and just think about all the vertebrae of the back, beginning with the coccyx, and then work your way up to the lumbar, which are the bigger, stronger bones. And then they move into the bones that are behind the rib cage, the thoracic vertebrae. Run your attention up them. Now, before we get to the vertebrae of the neck. Let's move back to the front body and give a little love to the chest, to the right shoulder, the right bicep and tricep, the right forearm, the heel of the right hand, the thumb, the index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky. And then run that attention back up the right arm, across the underarm, down the right side of your body. Go back over the hip, over the belly, up the left side of your body, to the left shoulder. And then from the left shoulder, run the attention down to the left bicep, tricep, the elbow, and that tender little spot on the other side of the elbow, your forearm and your wrist, the left palm, the left thumb, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, holding your attention on every one of these spots. And then run the attention all the way from the pinky up the inner left arm, under the arm, across the chest, and let that attention come to the neck, to the upper shoulders, and bathe it in relief. And let that sweet serenity lay over your face, rest on your eyelids and your cheeks and your lips, your forehead, until you want to drift into a sleep, sweet slumber. Namaste, everyone.